I've worked in the ICU for over 10 years. In that time, I've watched more people die than I can count. You learn to compartmentalize. You have to. Otherwise, the job destroys you. But about 6 months ago, something started happening during my night shifts that I still can't explain. And I've tried. It started with an older man. I'll call him Manuel. He'd been in critical condition for days. His family had already said their goodbyes. The doctors had made their peace with the outcome. I was monitoring his vitals around 2 a.m. when I noticed something on the screen. A brief spike. Oxygen saturation and heart rate, both climbing for just a few seconds before dropping back. My first instinct was equipment malfunction. I checked the leads. Everything was connected. 30 seconds later, Manuel stopped breathing. I reported the spike to the attending physician the next morning. He told me it was normal, that the body sometimes does that near the end. I accepted that, until it happened again. 3 nights later, different patient, an older woman, end-stage cardiac failure. Same thing, a brief spike in her vitals. Barely noticeable, maybe 4 seconds. Then a flat line. I stood there staring at the monitor for a long time after she was gone. I told myself it was a coincidence. Then it happened a 3rd time, and a 4th, always at night. Always during my shift. Always the same. A small, almost imperceptible surge in the readings, seconds before death. My colleagues didn't notice it. Or if they did, they didn't mention it. I started going back through patient records. Every patient who had died during my night shifts over the past 3 months showed the same pattern. Every single one. I didn't sleep well after that. I started wondering if I was the connection. If something about my presence was triggering it. I know how that sounds, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Then came the night that changed everything. A young man, early 30s, car accident on the highway outside of town. Internal bleeding, severe head trauma. The surgeons had done everything they could. He'd been unconscious for 2 days. I was alone in his room around 3 a.m., adjusting his 4, when I saw it on the monitor. The spike. I looked up from the screen, and he opened his eyes. Not halfway, fully. He was looking directly at me. Not through me, not at the ceiling, at me. I moved to his bedside. His lips didn't move. He didn't make a sound, but his eyes stayed on mine for what felt like a very long time. Then they closed. The monitor flatlined 4 seconds later. I stood in that room for a long time after he was gone. His parents arrived an hour later. They hadn't made it in time. I didn't tell them what I saw. I didn't tell anyone. I still don't know what those spikes mean. The medical explanation is terminal lucidity, a brief, unexplained surge of neurological activity right before death. It's real. It's documented. But it doesn't explain why he opened his eyes, or why he looked at me specifically, or why, 6 months later, I still think about him every single night I walk into that unit. I just know that whatever happens in those final seconds, it isn't nothing.
I just finished med school and started my residency in general surgery. The hours are brutal. That part one expected. What I didn't expect, I'm still trying to make sense of. My girlfriend and I moved into a small apartment closer to the hospital when I started. A few months in, we lost a patient on the table. Woman in her late 60s. Post-op complications. We did everything we could. The nurses on that floor were already spooked before it happened. They'd been there longer than me. They said the floor had a history. I didn't ask what kind. A few nights after she died, I stayed late, around 3 a.m., just me and 2 nurses still on shift. The hospital is understaffed, that floor especially. The entire level where she'd been moved after surgery was unoccupied. Had been for months. Then one of the nurses got a call, a request for assistance. From that floor, she looked at the other nurse. Neither of them moved. I asked if maybe a patient had been transferred up there. They both looked at me. No one's been on that floor, one of them said. Since she died, they dared me to go check. said it was probably just a janitor. I went. The elevator opened onto a dim hallway. No nurses at the desk. No lights on in any of the rooms. The whole floor had that particular silence that empty hospital floors have, the kind that feels different from regular quiet. I checked the first few rooms. Nothing. I started back toward the elevators. That's when I felt it. Not a breeze. Something rushed past me from behind, like someone running. I spun around. Nothing there. I turned back to the elevator and kept walking. Out of the corner of my eye, down the far end of the hallway, a woman, moving slowly. I didn't look directly at her. I kept telling myself it was my mind. Sleep deprivation does things to you. I knew that. Then something grabbed at my scrubs. Cold. Firm. I turned around immediately. Nothing there. At that point, I wasn't scared anymore. I was just done. I decided to make one more pass of the floor just to be sure, so I could go back downstairs and say with certainty that nothing was up there. I reached the room she'd been in, the room where she died. I stopped in the doorway. There was a shadow inside, not cast by anything I could identify, just a dark shape, standing near the bed, the shape of a woman. I recognized it. I don't know how. I just did. My whole body went cold. Then something snapped in me and I ran. Didn't wait for the elevator. Took the stairs all the way down. When I got back to my floor, the nurses took one look at me and didn't ask any questions. One of them just said, "You look pale." I went home after my shift, set my bag down, went to the kitchen, stood at the counter eating because I was too wired to sit down. That's when I felt it again. The same cold, the same presence. Out of the corner of my eye, in the dim corner of my kitchen, she was there, walking slowly, the same way she had moved on that floor. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, she was gone. I stood completely still for a long time, trying to convince myself I was just exhausted. Then my girlfriend started screaming from the bedroom. I ran in. She was sitting up in bed, shaking. She told me she'd had a dream. She was giving my stepson a bath, washing his hair. Her eyes were closed in the dream. She said his hair felt different, thicker than usual. She kept her eyes closed. Then he started laughing, but it didn't sound like him. It sounded like a grown man. She opened her eyes. He was turned toward the wall, not facing her. When she turned him around, his face wasn't his. It was a man's face, distorted, hairy, wrong. She jolted awake, and standing in the corner of our bedroom was a woman in a hospital gown. We still live in that apartment. I don't know if she followed me home because of something I did, or if she just wasn't ready to leave. The nurses never questioned what I told them I saw. They just nodded, like they'd been waiting for someone else to finally say it out loud.